Mandukya Karika, Pranam Mantra. Om Bhadram Karne Bhishinuyam Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangai Stustuvagung Sastanubi Vishema Deva Hitan Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashrava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti nastakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Sorry. So we had been discussing was uh, this idea of dream and the waking, where Gaudapada in Mandukya Karika conclusively showed how you cannot say that waking state is in any way superior to the dream state, or even that waking state is not a dream state, and wonderfully says that the perception that is outside is simply because they are coming through different organs. So, those of you who have not listened, you may listen to the earlier talk. And so the question comes, who is imagining? Question comes, how is this imagination taking place? And what is reality? You might have noted, we have named reality is what you see, what you perceive. Perception, perceive is the right word. Maybe we will use that word. That means reality is what you think reality to be. Reality is what you see the reality to be. Reality is what you hear it to be. Because very rarely you know the real as the real. It's always the apparent. It's always what reaches us that appears to us as real. And in this series, the first verse that we had mentioned was Jivam kalpayate purvam tato bhavan prithak vidhan. And there we had said Yatha vidyas tatha smritihi. Depending on what kind of knowledge you have, just says translation is as is one's knowledge, so is one's memory. As is your memory, so are your experiences. Depending on what your experiences are, they will become further memory, and that's how the life goes. And in this series, the first one is that Atman, pure consciousness, imagines itself to be Jiva. This is something that goes in Vedanta continuously. This idea that this the world that we see around us, the pleasure and pain, the achievements and failure, these are all imagination. Not our imagination, because we ourselves are the imagination. Imagination of the Supreme Lord. Now, from here, verse number 17 is amazing discussion on the nature of reality. It's just an amazing reality. And today we will cover it pretty fast. Otherwise, the thread will be lost. So, sorry, slightly down. Before we begin, let me tell you a very simple, very ordinary incident from my own life, and I never forgot it. So, when I was a young student, one monk who was deep into gardening had planted some special seeds, and beautiful flowers had come up. And they were just like leaves, flowers, and deep red with jet black at the center. And it was amazing. Beautiful flowers. And we did not know what its name was. So we kids, whenever we passed, we gave it a name. And because no one had seen anything like that. After some days, we found there was a placard. My name is Clinthus damperi. It's Italian flower. Now, this Swamiji, who was deep into gardening, he must have got this the seeds from somewhere. You might find the picture of the flowers on the internet. Clinthus damperi. And I did not realize then, but now that I'm into this kind of life, I'm into thinking, I'm into understanding, I realized that how true it was. This is this is the world. Here is the world. We look at the world. I look at you. You look at me, and we wonder who I am. I wonder who you are, and we give name. We attach a price tag to each other till we realize what is the worth of that person, who that person truly is. In many areas of Hindi belt, particularly in Delhi, whenever there is a quarrel, somebody will say, "Do you know who I am?" So, no, I don't know who you are. How would I know? If you were somebody, if you were, you would have had a bodyguard and you would have been carrying some plague, such and such person. How would I know who you are? This is the problem. To me, I am very important because to me, I am real. But to an all looker, I'm nobody. He or she just puts a stamp on my existence. He's so and so, he is capable of this and that, this and this. Exactly this happens with the ultimate reality, the Atman. Atman, pure consciousness, Satchidananda, Brahma, it appears differently to different persons. Today's discussion is about that. What is reality? And how people perceive different kinds of reality and why they perceive reality differently. So here, before I continue, just two simple stories. One from Sri Ramakrishna, who very beautifully said that there was a small forest, and on one of the trees there was a chameleon. Chameleon, as you know, changes its colors, and somebody saw it and said it's blue, yellow, red, other different persons, and a person who stayed there said, "Look, I stay here, and I know it has many colors." The thing is, the person who is saying chameleon is blue, red, etc., they're not wrong, but their understanding is colored by their perception. Better still, what the discussion that we are going to have is Swami Vivekananda was once staying in Gujarat, and he was staying at a place from where there was a big desert, and every day he used to see a pond of water. And one day he was roaming in that area and he felt thirsty, went near it. There was no water, and he suddenly realized it was a mirage. Once he returned, after that also he used to see that, but he knew that's not water, that's mirage. We keep on thinking differently till we have not perceived the reality. Once we know the reality, the appearance does not delude us. So everything everything in life depends on this simple thing, that you should know the reality the way it is. Otherwise, you will keep on concluding because you will be looking only at the appearance. And because you are looking only at the appearance, You will only be concluding things, and those conclusions will not be right, although that will serve your purpose, as we shall see. So, the conclusion here is that once you know the reality, Atman as Atman, you are never deluded. And unless you know the principle behind it, there will always be confusion. Why? See, the the example that I often use is Newtonian world, the world offered by Newton, where the laws were fixed, where force was mass into acceleration. But the nature of reality, as in Vedanta, does not go by Newtonian physics. It goes by uncertainty principle of Heisenberg, where the element of not knowing something correctly is always there. However, once you know the principle, okay, it's like this, your perception changes. The the relation and the comparison between quantum physics and religion ends there. We should not stretch the comparison. However, the main thing is that you know about the world what you want to know. According to this uncertainty principle, those of you who have some background in physics would know that there is this subatomic particle, say electron, it's moving. If you want to know what is its velocity, you can know to some amount of accuracy. And the more accurate you are about it, the less accurate will be its position, where it was. So you can never know it fully. But what you can know is the equation. If you can know the equation, Aham Brahmasmi, you are Brahman, you have known the reality. So now, if you know Atman, if you know consciousness, you cannot know the world. If you know the world, you don't know Atman. And the more you know of the world, more accurately you know of the world. That means you are deep into making money, etc. The less you will know of God. Now, this is my conclusion. I have not read anywhere. You can always question it. Somewhere, this uncertainty principle that the more you know of one thing, the less you will know of the other. This principle applies in this world too. Similarly, person who is deep into God, says Sri Ramakrishna was, the world had become completely immaterial for him. So this these twin objects, twin realities of God and world, this is how it goes. What Upanishads say that look, all your suffering and all your miseries are simply because you are attached to the world. If you want to get out of it, know the reality and you will not be deluded by the appearance. So, with that idea clear, now let's get to the different concepts of reality as perceived in Indian system of thought. We will have more of it. So it says that okay, fine. The question is raised that there is only Atman. If there is only Atman, why is it that people perceive it differently? Now, when we say differently, they don't mean as human beings and animals as geologists will be geologists thinks. So there are different species, etc. No, not in that sense. It says प्राणादिभि अनंतेश्च भावै एतेर विकल्पितः माय सतस्य देवस्य यया सम्मोहितः स्वयं. Oh, sorry, we skipped one shlok before that. Number 18, sorry. निश्चितायाम यथा रज्ज्वाम विकल्पो विनिवर्तते रज्जुरेविति चाद्वैतम तद्वत आत्म विनिश्चयः. We had explained, but we forgot to mention this verse. When you see a rope lying in darkness, you may conclude that this is a snake. You may conclude it's a water line. You might think that there is a crack. Once you know that it's a rope, you don't get deluded ever. The example of Swamiji that we used. There's a beautiful story by Sri Ramakrishna where there was a person lying by the roadside fast asleep. So a drunkard came. It was early morning. He thought, oh my God, he must have drunk a lot, and that's why he's lying flat here. And then came a thief, or maybe thief was earlier. And the thief thinks he must have made a big hand, and that's why he's sleeping here. And then came a sadhu. I said, he must have done jap dhyan whole night, and that is why he's sleeping like this. Now we don't know who that person truly was, but we know that depending on the mindset of the onlooker, reality changed its appearance. Dear listeners, this is what happens with the reality in this universe. The reality is pure consciousness, but we do not know that. Why? Because when we look at the reality, we always look at it with our senses and our mind, particularly our mind. Because we look with our mind, reality now appears as whatever it is. Once you can know what it truly is, you will never be deluded. You will never have any doubts. That's why in our traditions in Vedanta also they say that once you know Atman, all your doubts are dispelled forever. Vidyate Hridaya Granthi. Your doubts are dispelled completely. Say, for example, when you think of someone, does this person love me? Is this thing beneficial for me? You have doubt. The moment you have doubt, means you don't know the thing correctly. You don't know the person correctly. Once you know it correctly, like a baby doesn't have any doubt about her mom, his mom. Why we are not sure about something? Because we don't know it. Once we know it, there will never be any confusion. Nishchitayam tatha. So, the most important thing in life is to be firm about knowledge. Nothing like knowledge. And knowledge has been extolled in every religion. Most people don't know that. That every religion extols knowledge. Once you have complete, full, firm knowledge of something, you will never be deluded again. Say, well, I have seen it, I know it. Don't try to fool me. So, why is it that in spite of this truth, we perceive things differently? प्राणादिभि अनंतेश्व भावे एतेर विकल्पित माय तस्य देवस्य यया सम्मोहितः स्वयं. This is, oh, I once again I maybe skipped number 17 where it was that the doubt is that verse number 17. Doubt is because we don't know, and once we have firm knowledge, everything becomes clear. So Atman is imagined as prana and other numberless ideas, which we will discuss one after another. Now, all this is due to Maya, appearance belonging to Atman. It appears itself to be deluded. Here lies, here lies the total mystery about reality and appearance. Maya satasya devasya yaya sammohitaha swayam. Those of you who are a bit aware of Greek mythologies, you know this is a famous story of Narcissus. Narcissus was a very beautiful young man, and once he chanced to look at his image in a pond, and he was so charmed that he continued sitting there till he died. Atman, pure consciousness, with the power of everything, because it's consciousness. It has the power to do everything. It creates its Maya, power. Maya is the divine power, and looks at it and gets charmed. But they're not two different things. Sri Ramakrishna used to say Brahman and Shakti. Consciousness and its essence. Its essence is power. Consciousness and its essence. Shakti. Shakti is the essence of Brahman. Brahman is the ultimate reality, pure consciousness. Consciousness and its essence. So sometimes consciousness keeps its essence within itself, and sometimes it lets its essence spread. Something like, Sri Ramakrishna has given us many examples. Think of incense sticks. Incense stick has its essence, the beautiful smell within it. Burn it, the smell spreads. Pure consciousness is just like that. It opens itself up, and its essence, power, majesty spreads. Maya tasya devasi ya sammohita swam. It it gets attracted by its own beauty. Something like, there's Pygmalion, the story of Pygmalion, again in Greek mythology. Actually, Greek mythologies are beautiful to explain certain aspects of the world. So there was this Pygmalion who created a wonderful statue, and he loved it so much that he kept watching it. And he watched, and he watched, and he fell in love with that statue. Brahman, when it lets its essence spread, it falls in love with it. What is this pen? Just an aspect of Brahman, just a small wave of Brahman. Who am I? Just a small wave of Brahman. What is this microphone? Same. And yet we see all these things as different. This difference, this difference is world, this difference is Maya. In essence, everything is Brahman. Now, this is what Karika, this Mandukya Upanishad will say, that these things cannot be understood by mere reasoning, by mere listening, by mere reading. You need to meditate. You need to go deep. You need to realize the truth. Once you realize the truth, you will not be deluded again. So why there is so many theories? Why do we have so many theories of creation? Why do we have so many theories of existence? The sage says it's because God creates its Maya. Maya sa tasya devasya. That Lord, that Lord himself creates this Maya. It's like spider, it creates this web and then it stays on it. We have to use too many examples just to make this idea clear. But this idea can never be cleared because you can understand these things only when you meditate. Now with Vedanta becoming more and more popular in the West, and in South India also many people listen to books like Mandukya Karika. I don't know how much they understand. Probably they understand whilst they would be listening. But personally, I come across many such persons who ask me questions regarding this and that and thousand things. Why Maya? Who created Maya? You cannot understand these things theoretically. You need to listen to these things again, again, and again, then contemplate on it, finally go all out for meditation. And then once you know, you will not be deluded. So now comes Prana iti pranavido. This is from this verse number 20 begins, and different theories of creation. So, different theories of realities. And dear listeners, you will simply be surprised by the number of theories that India has. And each of this theory has been given by a sage. Uh, just the other day, I was reading somewhere where said the Western scientists do not even consider Hindu religion as a religion and Hindu philosophy as a philosophy, simply because they think it's idolatrous. I wish they had listened to our Mandukya Karika talk. And just listen to the number of theories that India has. And Gaudapada gives us some of these, not all. There is a very famous work on, on philosophy, Sarvadarshan Sangraha. There some other philosophies are mentioned. Number of philosophies. And in India, every philosophy is treated as a religion, sub-religion you can say, because Hindu religion is the master mother religion, and everything else is just a small part of it, something like Christianity and its sects. Christianity is the overarching religion, and there are different sects just like that. These are sects because all these accept the Ved as the ultimate truth. Prana iti pranavido, bhutani iti cha tadvidah, guna iti gunavidah, tattvani iti cha tadvidah. Those who worship prana, these are the actually Vaishesik. Now, Vaishesik, there were six major philosophies. First was Sankhya, then Yoga, and there's not much difference between Sankhya and Yoga. Nyaya and Vaishesik. There's slight difference between Nyaya and Vaishesik, and Mimamsa and Vedanta. Actually, they have more of similarity than differences. So basically, you have three systems which spread into six. Vaishesik people focus on pran. They think that pran, energy. Every time you hear from somebody that God is energy, every time you hear from somebody energy is the ultimate truth, you know that he is talking Vaishesik without knowing it. You might have heard, those of you, dear listeners, you must have heard many people talking about the ultimate being energy. Now, for example, in physics, when they talk about Big Bang, they talk about energy. They don't realize that without their knowing, they are into the philosophy of the Vaishesik. Wonderful, isn't it? And says Bhutagya. The translation is those who knows bhutas. Bhutas mean element. These are the materialists, Charvak and others. And Charvak and others, they accepted only four. They didn't even accept ether, Akash. And in Greek philosophy, you will come across philosophers. There are philosophers who accept only four kinds of atoms, and there are some who accept five. So these Charvak, they accept only four. And they believe matter to be the ultimate. Now, when you look at science, the moment you bring in Einstein there, so Einstein says that matter and energy are same. Matter and energy being same, these Charvak, the materialists, and the Vaishesik, for whom energy is the ultimate, they become one. So, whole of Western science today is essentially a combination of Charvak and Vaishesik. Because Charvak, Charvak did not know that matter and energy are same. And if they had known, there would have been a total collapse of their system because they don't know how to relate. Because if they wanted to relate, then they would have to go to Vaishesik system. So let us assume that Vaishesik system is superior. So science is all about combination of Charvak and Vaishesik. Prana and Bhuta. Bhuta means matter. And those who know the gunas are three: Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva, Rajas, Tama. And from these three qualities evolve the whole of universe. Then you become a Sankhyavadi. Just we mentioned Sankhya as a system of philosophy. And then there are Tattvagya. They call themselves Tattvagya, but they are basically Shaiva. They are the worshippers of Shiva. They they believe in three. The terms are Atma, Avidya, and Shiva. There is Atman, and there is Avidya, ignorance, and there is Shiva, Lord. So you have three realities: Shiva, the Lord. These are Shiva minded, and Shakti, the system of Shakti. That is Shakti philosophy also comes from there only. Shiv and Shakti, they are one and the same. And from Shiva and Shakti flow out Atman and flow out Avidya, ignorance. So this universe that you see, in fact, this is much similar to Christianity and Islam. In Christianity and Islam also, similar thing happened where there is God, there is soul, and there is world. But Shaiva being an Indian system of thought, world will never be ultimately real. This is the beauty of Indian system of thought. In Indian system of thought, excepting for the Charvak, who are actually used as the punching bag. Every system of philosophy takes up Charvak because they say that there was some sage, something like in Greek philosophy, we also had Epicurus who came up with this philosophy. And but the goal of Epicurus was entirely different. However, his followers came to be known as Epicureans who indulged in things. Charvak, the materialists, they believe in enjoying the world. They are absolutely not interested in the spiritual reality of the world. For them, whatever is there has come out of the matter. And that's why every philosophy uses it to disprove that, to prove their own system. Other than Charvak, no system in India will ever say matter to be the ultimate truth. And when Vaishesik also say prana to be ultimate truth, they believe in some form of consciousness. Those of you who are more interested in knowing about it, we have talks on Nyaya and Vaishesik. We have one playlist, Hinduism series. There you will find six systems of philosophy that has been discussed individually. So you can listen to that talk. So there are three realities according to Shaiva. They are actually dualists. And so they believe in God, which is Shiva, Atman, soul. And soul is different from Shiva and Avidya. This Avidya is actually responsible for matter. Then there are Pada iti Padavido, Vishaya iti Tadvida, Loka iti Lokvido, Deva iti cha Tadvidaha. Verse number 21. Again, very interesting shlok. Interesting because there are people who believe these quarters. You remember we had begun our Upanishad with Pada, Matra, Matrascha, Pada. They consider these three quarters to be ultimate. Now, who those philosophers are is not mentioned here. I personally don't know who were they. There must be some sect of Vedanta who consider these three transformations to be the ultimate. So basically, they believed in transformation. So sometimes you have Sthul Sukshma Karan, one going into the other, not the fourth one, mind it, only the three. So Pada iti Padavido, Vishaya iti Tadvidaha. Vishaya, they believe that there are five Vishaya objects. These are not the four objects of the Charvak, these are different. So, says commentators say Vatsyayan. Now there are quite a few Vatsyayan in Hindu system of thought. One of them is who gave Kam Sutra, but this Vatsyayan is not from that. And according to some, This is Pakshil Swami. Pakshil Swami Vatsyayan. He belonged to Nyaya system of thought, and he popularized this idea of five objects: Shabd, Sparsh, Roop, Ras, Gandha, the sound, the touch, etc. These are the ultimate reality. Just see how many philosophies are coming up. Imagine. And they all based their philosophy on the Ved. And then there are Lokvettas. Loka iti lokvido. Loka. Lok is anything that can be experienced, can be seen. Lok means that which can be seen. So the commentator says, Pauranik, those who belong to the Pauranic system of thought, Puran system of thought, they believe in the Lok to be the ultimate reality. The Lok are the spheres of existence. For example, Earth. This is one Lok. And you might have heard of Bhur Bhuva Swaha, as in Gayatri Mantra. Swaha is the ultimate subtle sphere, Bhuva is in between, and Bhu is the physical universe. So the entire universe that we see, any anything that can be perceived, experienced through our senses, and with the add-ons like telescope, etc., that belongs to Bhu. Swa is the ultimate, in between is Bhuva. Then later, some more were added: Bhur, Bhuva, Swa, Jana, Maha, Tapa, Satya. Because see, just three lokas are not sufficient to explain the huge gamut of existence. Similarly, they came up again with seven kinds of patal, and as the Puran number of Puranas increased, and as their size increased, they came up with different kinds of heaven, different kinds of hell. According to them, these were the ultimate truth. And the goal was to reach the highest, which was Satya, Satyalok. And later, this Satyalok was equated with Vaikuntha Dham, as the Vaishnavas believe, and Shiva Lok, as the devotees of Shiva believe. However, by their very definition, these look are temporary. But temporary not in the sense as we consider, but temporary in the term of maybe 14, 15 zeros are followed by, for 14, 50 zeros are there after 1 years. So you stay for a long time and then what happens? Then you come back. So then, well, more philosophies came because that was their perception. Loka iti lokvido and deva iti chatadvidaha. There are people who believe in gods to be the ultimate reality. This is the Vedic people. Some sages of the Vedas, they believe the gods to be the ultimate reality. Now, what is interesting, those of you who are interested in knowing something about the Veda, we have around 10 talks in English and 40 in Bengali. You'll find in the playlist. You'll get some idea about the Vedas. In the Ved, we find there are the gods with small g. And these gods, they appear similar to Greek gods, but they're not really Greek gods. Because when you try to look into their personality, you realize that they are like masks of the infinite. If they are masks of the infinite, they cannot be like Greek gods. However, here when it is talked, Deva iti cha tad vidaha, the gods. God is God here means with a small g. They are the ultimate. So you find that the yagyas were developed. Today we equate the Vedas with yagya, sacrifices, sacrifice. You want a son, have a sacrifice. You want rains, have a sacrifice, yagya. You want to prove that you are the greatest king, have a yagya. These are the people who believed in the supremacy of the Dev, gods. And of course, later it will come. There are people who believe in yagya. So people who believed in Dev and people who believed in yagya, they're slightly different. People who believed in Dev, they also went by offering prayers to them, talking about them. This has been beautifully discussed in Ishavashopanishad. This talk is there in our playlist. You can listen to that. Then you will get an idea where it says that there is Vidya and there is Avidya. Avidya is Yagya. Vidya is Devata Vishaya Gyan, knowledge about the gods. When you go all out to know about the gods, is the theoretical knowledge about the God and it ruins you. And when you go only for karma, action, Yagya, you are in a different kind of darkness. The goal is to make use of all your faculties and be one with Atman. So these are some more theories that we went through. Veda iti Vedavido, Yagya iti Chatadvida. The next very verse it comes. People who study the Vedas, they consider Ved to be the ultimate. Mimamsak. These are the Mimamsak we mentioned. Mimamsa is one of the philosophies. Mimamsa considers Ved to be the ultimate. Now, Ved has two aspects. One is known as Jnana Rashi. Jnana Rashi means it's knowledge, and Shabda Rashi, words. What is very interesting about Jnana Rashi and Shabda Rashi is that under normal conditions, anyone will think, persons like me and you will think that Newton's equation, they are not mere equations. They point at particular aspect of reality. E equal to mc square. It's not just mental gymnastics. It's something, it's a knowledge that can be applied. Even Einstein did not believe in that. Gyan Rashi means the Vedas are knowledge, knowledge bank. If a person acquires that knowledge, he can make use of it. Surprisingly, in Indian traditions, the Veda came to be admired as, worshipped as Shabda Rashi too. And that is why the Brahmins, instead of focusing more on acquiring knowledge, they focused on memorizing them. Instead of acquiring knowledge, they focused on memorizing. And today also you will find that Brahmins, those who follow the Ved, they focus more on memorizing and pronouncing it correctly. And they are extremely respected people. Personally, I respect them hugely because I cannot memorize and I hardly know any mantra properly of the Ved. Memorization, I mean. I know the essence. I belong to the Gyan Rashi types. I don't belong to Shabd Rashi. So I don't look down upon them. I have the highest respect for them. Of course, they don't have any respect for me. So no issues. Here, when they are talking about Vedaiti Ved Vido, they mean to say Ved, the Shabd Rashi, the mass of words. Mimamsak, they were mastered at it. Yagya iti chatadvidaha. And there were people who believed that yagya are everything. So there was a philosopher, sage philosopher, Bodhayan. He emphasized on that. Those of you might have studied Mahabharata. We have a few talks in English on Mahabharata. We couldn't continue with the series uh, because of lack of time. So there in the beginning itself, there is a discussion that how these Brahmins who were into yagya, they were the followers of Bodhayan or maybe some other sage. They believed that these mantras, these yagyas had so much of power that if they performed yagya properly, they could get even Indra, the king of gods, to the spot where they wanted. And this belief, particularly in the form of Tantra, which is an extremely degenerated form of yagya, continues to be in India. And for most problems, gullible people, they go to these tantric. They believe that they can hit their enemies by those mantras, performance of certain rituals, and they feel that they can get rid of their own problems through them. And bhokteti cha bhoktrivido bhojyamiti cha tadvida. This is this is very interesting, that says those conversant with the enjoyer designate it as enjoyer, and those with the object of enjoyment call it such. It is the cook. Those who are very good at cooking, they believe that they believe that everything is about cooking. The term is bhokta and bhojya. There are people who enjoy. They say enjoyment is about everything. So here, Acharya Shankar doesn't even give any commentary on these things. Just says that people who are very good at cooking, they perceive the ultimate reality in one way, and people who enjoy food, they perceive reality in another way. Imagine reality, Atman, being perceived by some as the gods, by some as yajna, by some as ved, and by some as objects of enjoyment, cooking. It's a beautiful story by Swamiji says, nothing like leather. A kingdom was attacked, so the king invited people to suggest, and the ironsmith, they said, let's put an iron wall. And the woodcutter said, let's put a wooden wall. And those who dealt in leather said, nothing like leather, sir. So, depending on how we perceive things, depending on how we are established in something, we look at the reality like that. This, according to some other this commentators, they say that this is not about cooking and this thing, but this is about aspects of Sankhya. In aspects of Sankhya, there are two aspects. One is pure consciousness who enjoys the universe. And there is the universe itself known as Prakriti. So, according to some, Prakriti is the ultimate reality, and for others, Purush, consciousness, is the ultimate reality. However, the way it has been described here, Bhokta iti cha bhoktrivido, bhojyam iti cha tadvida. This is one very serious problem with Sanskrit, that the same word can be translated and explained differently. So, this word, Bhokta and Bhoktri, can be explained both as Prakriti and Purus, as also as enjoyment and enjoyer. So, there is enjoyer, one who enjoys food, and there is enjoyment created by the cooks. सूक्ष्म इति सूक्ष्म विद स्थूल इति च स्थूल विद च तद्विद मूर्त इति मूर्त विदो अमूर्त इति च तद्विद. There are people who know the subtle things, and those who know the subtle things, this is known as we feel consciousness all over the body. It's partly in some Jain theory. Jain have this kind of theory where they feel that entire thing to be consciousness to be spread all over the body. So, and there are people who believe this entire thing to be gross. There are people who believe it to be subtle. There are people who believe it to be gross, like Charvak, etc. And Murtavadi, those who believe in idols, That is, those who believe in God with form, they believe that the ultimate reality is God with form. And Amurt, those who believe God to be formless, they say that reality is formless. You know how the world has been fighting against idolatry, and the process, how many heads are rolling because people want to prove that God doesn't have a form. This has been going on. This has been going on for thousands of years. From the day that Abraham, there's a story that Abraham broke the idols and he came up with the concept of one supreme God. That was the birth of Judaism. Since then, the heads are rolling. In the name of destroying the idols, heads get rolled. And Kali iti Kali vido, Disha iti Shatadvidaha, Vada iti Vadivido, Bhuvanan iti Tadvidaha. These terms are coming in slightly different term, that those who know about time, that astrologers and all, they believe that to be the ultimate. I know one gentleman who is into astrology, and he was saying he has scientific background, fully scientific background, and he's also well established in astrology. And he said he's also a devotee. He said, "Look, I know that he's not believing." He said, "I know that everything is God's will, and when God wills, He gets things done through the planets, because in astrology planets play a very important role, planetary movement. And if you go to some astrologer, particularly if he's a quack, he will go on telling you that Shani is attacking you and Rahu is attacking you. However, those who are the true astrologers, they talk about time. And you say that, you will see, you might have noted that sometimes even if you do wrong things, nobody can touch you. And sometimes you do all the good things, even then everything goes wrong. They turn to ashes. In the entire Hindi world, there is this wonderful expression, "Waqt kharab chal raha hai." My time is bad. Now, Christians and the Western world and other religions, they don't have this concept. This concept has come in India from these astrologers, Kalavida. So, for them, time is everything. And this time manifests as smaller units of time. And any motion that you see, any movement that you see, is part of that Kala. Kala iti Kalavido, Disha iti cha tadvidaha. And there are people who consider this world, all the directions, to be the ultimate truth. Uh, because there is Swarodaya. We don't even know of these philosophy. They are no more current. Swarodaya. They used to believe that they're kind of philosophers. And Vada Vedanta, those who believe in the power of word. Who are these? They are Mantravad, Dhatuvad. There is a, in recent times again, there is a theory, popular theory coming up known as fort, word. So they consider everything to be sound. Like as in Christianity, we have, in the beginning was word. Of course, later Christians, they said by word they mean Jesus Christ. And those who know Bhuvananiti Tadvida, the all the Bhuvan are the different spheres of existence. For them, reality is 14 Bhuvan. Maneti manovido, buddhiti cha tadvida, chittamiti chittavido, dharma dharmo cha tadvida. So, more theories come. Those who believe in mind, they say that mind is everything. And the Bauddha philosophy says Buddhi. Buddhi is everything. Kshanik Vigyanvad, etc. has come. Actually, Buddhists, for them, consciousness, and they have come up with so many terms like awareness and consciousness and things like. So they were so thoroughly beaten up in India, logically, I mean, that they had to run away to other countries. And from there, they're not preaching. Then there are people who consider totality of mind, known as chitta, as everything. And Mimamsak, who describe everything as dharma and adharma. So Mimamsak consider Ved to be Shabdarashi. They also believe Ved to talk about dharma, what is right. So Mimamsak have different definitions, particularly in this work. So those who believe in dharma, they say that dharma is the last word. Dharma is the reality. You'll be surprised to know that Shankaracharya single-handed demolished each of these philosophies. If you go through his work, it's amazing. It's unbelievable. The kind of talent that he had. Single-handed, each of these things that we are discussing, single-handedly he discussed. And he demolished them through argument. पंचविंशक इत्येके षड्विंशति चापरे एकत्रिंशक इत्याहुर अनंत इति चापरे. Then there are people who say, these are the Sankhya followers, they believe in 25 tattvas. And then there are Yoga philosophy, it believes in 26. Now they have more or less adjusted to 24. And then there are Pashupat, from Shaiva there is Pashupat, they believe in 31 tattva. God, I'm glad that I was not a student of philosophy. I would have surely failed, believe me. I would have failed. Just imagine the number of philosophies we have. And there are many more philosophers who go by different aspects of reality. So that means there's just no end. There's just no end. There's a very beautiful Sanskrit expression, munde munde matiri vinna. Every mind has a different idea about reality. And if he's a sage, if he has been into, like in India, we had so many great personalities. We had Raman Maharshi, we had J. Krishnamurti, I mean, in recent times, and they all came up with something. And we have followers. Aurobindo was there. So these people might have talked quite similar things, but what we are discussing here, they are absolutely dissimilar. लोकान लोक विदा प्राहुर आश्रमा इति तद्विदा स्त्री पुंग नपुंसकम लिंगा paraparam athapare. The whole thing has not ended here. It continues, says that lokan lok vida prahu. Those who know only pleasure, those who know only enjoyment, sexual enjoyment, other enjoyment, for them that is the reality. Imagine, Vedanta negates them at the highest level. But as far as the relative world is concerned, they are not concerned. Okay, this is your view. We can say nothing about it. So, persons, those who go by Kam Sutras and all, like Vatsyayan himself was a great sage. However, he wrote Kam Sutra and people go by it. Lokan Lok Vida Prahu. Lok is Lokaranjan. Those who find enjoyment in this world, different kinds of enjoyment. For them, the world is all about enjoyment. So you might have heard this kind of expression. The world is for us to enjoy. So this philosophy is an accepted philosophy in India. And then there are people who believe in ashrama, chaturashrama. brahmacharya, garhasthya, vanaprasth, and sannyas. For them, that's everything. And then there are people, they are known as lingavadi. Ling is sex. Sex in the sense of male, female, neuter. These are the grammarians. Now, grammarians form a very important sect of philosophers. Nowadays, of course, they have lost their importance, but there was a time when grammarians played a very important role. And here at our university, where I'm taking the classes, we have these grammarians, and they are into, they'll say, they'll try to find everything as male, female, and neuter. And the philosophy of life is shaped by these things. Shishtiriti shishtivido layati chatad vidaha. Oh, sorry. Huh. And and there are people who consider Brahman to be the ultimate. And then comes verse number 28. Shishtiriti shishtivido layati chatad vidaha. Sthitiriti sthiti vidaha sarvacheha tu sarvada. There are people who believe in creation. They are the people who believe in creation. There are people who believe in destruction. There are people who believe in stability. So we have different kinds of philosophies depending on which aspect of existence you believe. So, what is reality? I'm sure more than 30, 40 systems of philosophy were discussed here. Mandukya Karika concludes beautifully. Yam bhavam darshayet yasya tang bhavam satu pashyati tang chavati sa bhutva aso tadgraha samupeti tam. Depending on what your guru has shown you, you will see that as the reality. And with time, you become one with that aspect, with that bhav, and that bhav protects you. Of all the shlok in Mandukya Karika, not Upanishad, Karika, this is my favorite shlok, shlok number 29. And when I was studying it, not the first time, the second time, long ago, suddenly the idea about this philosophical world became clear to me. Reality is what you perceive to be real. And this perception comes to you from your teacher. Your parents are your teachers, the society is the teacher, your mind is the teacher, your friends are the teacher. And that's how you perceive the reality. Yang bhavam darshayet yasya tang bhavam satu pashyati. Depending on what bhava your guru has taught you, what attitude your guru has taught, that is the reality for you. Now we will have to discuss this shlok in detail in the next talk. Thank you so much.